Hi, it's Eliana. So today we are going to look at the remote viewing of Dray's Special Forces Tour of Duty and Space Marines work detail for the SSP. This remote viewing was done May 7th, 2024 on a man codenamed Dray. So it is an SSP operative, Special Forces, and Marines, Space Marines. So this man is in his mid-20s, codenamed Dray. He was taken through a quantum leap jump gate portal to Utah when he saw underground bunkers, and then he was sent to the White Sands Proving Grounds base where there are remote areas housing a base facility that looks like sections of square buildings and observational towers transmitting information to other military facilities. And this man was in his mid-20s when this happened. For his introduction into the SSP military operations, this is on Earth in Utah. And after this, he was taken to see another base. Again, things started with the White Sands Proving Grounds in New Mexico. That's the second base, and it has various sections of land sectors where base testing is done of exotic nuclear fusion rocket testing, as well as building experimental base facilities in the remote sections near bare mountain ranges. Testing is done with using titanium reinforcement of buildings to prevent nuclear missile attacks so the buildings can withstand attacks without falling apart, even if hit by nukes. So testing is done using titanium reinforcement. So that's interesting. That's why these bases look thicker in material, and they're using experimental techniques to really do this outfitting of these bases, these reinforcements. And the bases can have surface features or underground features or both. That's part of how that work is done. Underground facilities, surface facilities in remote areas. And there's more of these bases because Dray was stationed at several bases. The various experimental bases have modular-like appearances with dark black or gray colors to blend in with the mountain range. Backdrops for camouflage purposes. There are armored vehicles parked beside each base, and the man with the codename Dray would drive these types of vehicles while out on surveillance patrol to surveil the boundaries of the bases to make sure that the security perimeters were not compromised or breached. And here you see another modular base facility. Some of the square base buildings have up to 8 levels with elevators to take personnel throughout the various sections in each building facility. Other buildings are large communication towers and R&D development sites for manufacturing exotic metamaterials and fabricating elements for metallurgy combinations that create strong materials for reinforcing infrastructures for base buildings to prevent destruction by nukes, earthquakes, or other weapons that can destroy physical structures. And here we're seeing some interesting building of bases. The man with the codename Dray had been taken to base locations that look like rectangular shaped facilities with their own internal self-sustaining cities with living dormitories, cafeterias, work sites with computer labs, medical bays, R&D sections, and other parts of the facilities used to house the armories, armored vehicles, etc. So these are military facilities and experimental bases, some on Earth, some off-world. So Dray got to see doing a tour of duty of several of these bases and what that looks like and entails as jobs, military jobs. The square base facilities have various building sites, and some have more levels than others for base operations, where there are multiple towers within the base infrastructure, as well as transportation hubs for subway trains to travel through, and specific areas for roads where armored vehicles drive on the bases and off-base travel. So there's extensive transportation systems within these bases and underground, and armored vehicles to transport staff, to transport military personnel around the bases within these military facilities. Dray had been provided with living in an experimental base home on another planet that looked similar to Earth, where the military personnel were driving fast cars and armored vehicles. The experimental home is completely automated with holographic technology and had replicators for replicating food, furniture, and other objects that are needed to create living or working environments on a military compound, as well as an experimental home system. So again, armored cars, fast vehicles, these futuristic self-automated type of homes on military grounds being experimented on, terraforming planets, putting bases on exoplanets. That's what these human military programs are doing, and experimenting with how to build bases with titanium and other materials that are long lasting and will reinforce a base to be virtually almost non-destructible. So that's what seems to be the experimental processes going on here that Dray got to see and serve in some of these bases and learn about these facilities and live in these new experimental homes on military land, I guess, what the remote viewing shows. Some of the military personnel were living on larger base facilities that were also simulating combining work and living environments as part of a seamless combination modular base compounds, which look like modern buildings housing aspects of military sections and living spaces without needing to have separate compound facilities to make these arrangements work seamlessly. So there's parts of military testing of base facilities, living arrangements that happens on large parcels of land that's remote, military land, military owned operations on Earth and off-world on other planets. So this is normal, and that's how the military tests things out, sends out personnel, crews, military soldiers to test out bases, to test out new facilities, and report back how things work and what needs improvement. Dray got to work in underground base facilities that were built out of carved out mountain ranges on various habitable zone exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy. Some of the bases were circular in shape as they were built, with certain types of dynamics arranged for domed structures that can rotate and lift off their building platforms, and the base can be relocated to a different military site on the planet as needed. These types of circular bases have anti-gravity propulsion engines underneath them, so that is what allows them to be moved to different locations as portable military facilities. That's the domed structure that takes off and can park itself on a different platform and act as a base facility on an exoplanet. There were large circular base military facilities that were surrounded by areas of sand and blocks of rock. Faces around the base structures. Many people would congregate around and within the base facilities. In gatherings as well, there were 6 saucer-shaped anti-gravity crafts that were acting as transport vehicles, which would take people from the base to other locations and other military sites. And we get to see now inside some of these bases and what they look like. The circular military bases had metallic silver alloys that covered the inside walls and the outside of the facilities. There were various tunnel entrances and exits out of these facilities. So there's various tunnel entrances, exits out of these facilities. That's pretty normal for underground facilities. Everything on the bases had a smooth texture for the walls and the floors due to the metallic alloys being used to build them. Hence, indestructible materials. The circular military bases had various corridors that were lit by soft ambient lighting, and this lighting had different colors which would indicate where personnel needed to go to report for their job duties at the various sections of the base. It seems that the colored lighting designates work area sites where personnel need to head to in regards to specific job projects or other base activities that they participate in on a regular basis. The base facilities on the inhabited exoplanets have fully built infrastructures with subway train stations and motorized underground transportation facilities so that the base personnel can easily travel from different sections of the larger bases to arrive where they are going from one location to another. So there's different sections, there's different transport systems, there's armored vehicles, there's subways, there's trains. You can get around these bases because there's good transportation to get you to where you need to go for your job, for your military work, for your admin work at these base facilities, because you also have admin who run the bases, admin personnel. Military base underground subway stations where the Special Forces individual with the codename Dray used the subway every day for about 6 years on a base to get around at the large facility for his various job tasks and security projects. So he had security clearances for where he needed to report to work. And this is underground facility where these subway stations are coming out of different portions of the base where you report to, where you go, where you work. And so the specialized military bases on Earth and on the exoplanets where Dray had served as a Special Forces operative had underground security checkpoints that were medium-sized buildings which had both stairs and elevators to have access routes to enter the base facilities, which were built in carved out cavern systems under various types of mountain ranges. So you can see there's security checkpoints at these facilities. Underground, on the surface level, everything is based on security clearances, everything is guarded, everything is prioritized by sections and military perimeters on these bases. So this is the entrance gateways to access the underground military base facilities that are located on Earth and built similarly on the habitable zone planets. The entrance ways also lead to the subway station transportation platforms. So this is the interior of the inner workings of what these bases look like underground. They're extensive. They're vast networks of these bases built as experimental facilities to see how humans can live on them on exoplanets. Humans are out in space using anti-gravity technology, anti-gravity craft. using beyond the speed of light technology. That's what's happening in the SSP right now. Military planning rooms and SCIF facilities in the underground bases that Dray had served on when he was special services operative with special forces on Earth and on other exoplanets. So special forces, special services operatives, they're the elite military, basically. Working security, working specialized programs, special forces, space marines. This is the type of work they do. They work on bases. They operate on large transport ships, cargo ships. They do security detail on the bases, off the bases. So these military bases have holographic technology that can interface with thought consciousness abilities. And they have these meeting rooms or secure site SCIF facilities where classified information is being debriefed or briefed with security, specialized security clearances behind closed doors. That's some of the project work they do. In these types of bases, it's part of military protocol. The military bases that are built in the carved out cavern systems and under mountain ranges, both on Earth or on the other exoplanets where humans have outposts, these bases have multiple levels of circular intersections where people work, congregate, meet, and live in personal quarters, as well as dormitories for the single military personnel. So you can see sections of these bases and what they look like. It's made out of this metallic material that's non-destructible. It's carved out in mountain ranges. It is all been worked out and it's being trialed. Some of it is experimental, some of it is no longer experimental. There's various tiers and levels to the bases. The tiered levels of the military bases are 3D printed with replicators, and these bases have a modern appearance with various sections that are well lit with temperature-controlled environments for both heating and the AC, along with artificial gravity, so military personnel and other base operators can live on these bases for prolonged periods of time. And these are human-run bases. They're not ET extraterrestrial bases. Human-run SSP personnel are on these bases. They run the bases, they work there, they live there. The bases have a futuristic design to them with various sections leading to departments where the personnel and operatives have specific job tasks to complete, and holographic technology is utilized on the basis to transmit information with quantum computers built into the work sites on the basis, as well as in public gathering areas where technology is needed to complete event functions during presentations, etc. So they have joint gathering spaces, congregation spaces, work areas. These bases are extensive with different environments and levels to them. The underground bases have holographic computer labs that are networked to all the bases' data infrastructures, communication systems, databases, virtual archives, server hubs, etc. So you have these workstations with quantum computing, holographic technology. That is all been set up and worked out. These bases also have the quantum computer labs with huge screens that project various experimental quantum time dilation projects and how quantum energy is produced for simulating time travel through man-made frequency Stargate portals. So that's interesting. There's huge projection screens, there's time dilation, There's working out how portal stuff works. It's pretty interesting. And this is what some of this portal technology looks like. Quantum time dilation energy field Stargate portal being built next to the military bases. Large wormholes being activated with time dilation energy quantum drives installed on the Stargate portals in order to be able to transport shuttlecrafts and small scout vessels to other exoplanets where there are networks of portal systems with base locations with active military troops serving on the bases. And Dray had been active military serving on these types of bases, traveling through these portals. These are man-made portals connected to military bases, built by human SSP operatives in the military. Activation of large wormhole energy quantum drive Stargate portals coming online next to military bases being operated on exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy, especially in regions of the Kuiper Belt. So there's a lot of activity happening in the Kuiper Belt. And there's military personnel and the soldiers entering a quantum energy field Stargate portal to go on a mission to explore newly discovered exoplanets where temporary portable quantum drive portals have been set up to explore these planets by the military personnel and then go back to their base operations on the exoplanet and report back what they've seen from these missions that they've gone on for planetary exploration. Military soldiers entering the underground bases built on exoplanets and checking that everything is done according to protocol standards at the bases, following rules of how personnel work at the bases as well as how the bases are governed with proper treatment of all workers, soldiers, and personnel living at these bases. So there's governance protocols for how everything works on these bases, how they're operated, and how personnel are treated. So there are soldiers making sure that these bases operate within what is considered legal protocols of human treatment on other planets. That it's within operational standards of proper legal protocol, that workers aren't mistreated. Soldiers are doing their work. These bases are operated correctly. There's also soldiers patrolling around the underground military base entrance points on exoplanets, checking that everything is secure on their patrol duty, with squads of 4 to 8 soldiers doing perimeter check rounds, so there are no intruders around the base entrances or any surveillance that is not supposed to be around the base locations. So everything is secure, there's security, everything is checked so that there's no breaches, there's no security intrusion issues. These exoplanets are manned by humans, and humans are exploring space. There's also the square and rectangular shaped multi-level military bases located within hollowed and carved out cavern systems on exoplanets where special forces soldiers like Dray are stationed, protecting the bases and finishing their training to live on different planets while working for special forces programs on project mission assignments off planet away from Earth. So human military personnel are being deployed off planet to serve and work on different exoplanets that have military human-run bases for these various SSP programs, special forces, special services, and space marines. And these military bases are being built within areas where mountain passes were blasted out on exoplanets to make room for human-run programs settling new planets by first establishing bases, then other living facilities being built out, infrastructures, or colony cities once the bases prove to be successful in habitation for planetary expeditions or exploration by military personnel and base personnel who are manning these newly built bases. The underground military base that is on one of the exoplanets where there are multiple levels of departments for work sites on the base and living quarters for base personnel. This particular base has a lookout point and stairs going down to a sand arena where different training events take place, sports, and meditation sessions to center and ground the mind for healthy brain rewiring. So this is interesting. There's a sand arena. There's several platforms going down for training events to take place, sports, meditation sessions to center and ground the mind for healthy brain rewiring. So brains can work properly, be grounded, be balanced, be whole, holistic. Even in these bases, there's interesting structures that allow you to meditate and ground yourself, because military must be fit, must be mentally healthy, physically healthy, and other base personnel must also have the same to live on these exoplanets. Mind, body, and health wellness seems to be important. And there's these structures to support that on these remote bases. So this is what a base entrance and exit points can look like on the various levels of the underground multi-level bases being built on different exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy. Some of the base facilities are reinforced with titanium for structural and security purposes. As these bases have weapons platforms and launching sites where experimental anti-gravity craft are flown. There's different base types being built. There's high-rise base module facilities with elevators. These bases are built in pod-style arrangements on exoplanets to experiment with having various types of building styles on planets that are being prepared to have human colonists living there eventually in colony cities. So these bases are the first testing facilities to see how all this will work for human colonization of the newly discovered exoplanets. Large military base compound built inside a hollowed out mountain range on an exoplanet. This base is titanium reinforced and has multi-levels for working sites, living spaces, and underground military R&D installations for testing newly developed anti-gravity crafts. There is also surface level models on the base designed for hovercraft. So there's also the surface level models on the base designed for hovercraft to lift off and land at the base facilities. So this modular type of base designs allow for surface level models to be built. Underground bases and surface level models for landing different crafts, hovercrafts, hover cargo, transport vehicles, etc. at these base facilities. And here we're starting to see the hovercrafts. There's manufacturing plant that is producing and building mid-sized anti-gravity crafts for transporting goods, services, cargo, and military personnel between the various bases being built on exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy. And so there's manufacturing plants producing mid-sized anti-gravity crafts, transport, cargo, and all kinds of other services and military personnel being transferred between the different bases on the exoplanets. There's anti-gravity manufacturing power plants which have electromagnetically charged spheres that provides the energy output for building crafts with artificial gravity and magnetic levitation, as well as cloaking technology that masks the anti-gravitic crafts from being detected by radar or satellites. So this is stealth technology that's being developed on these exoplanets connected to the military bases. So satellites and radar can't detect it. As well, there's anti-gravity craft cities that land and dock near the military bases and have soldier crews on them that are piloting these crafts every couple of months to the various bases on the exoplanets to transport supplies and crew personnel working on space missions. So Dray got to see these types of mission parameters and do this mission work. There are centralized military bases that have been built in underground facilities on exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy. These bases have R&D labs that build and manufacture transport anti-gravity crafts and large platform spaceships that can travel beyond the speed of light, delivering various amounts of supplies and crew to the base compounds throughout the exoplanets. So these are fully working operational bases with human personnel working there and living there. There are underground military installations where anti-gravity crafts are being built in manufacturing plants and armored vehicles are produced as readily available transport between the bases that were built out on many exoplanets in solar systems throughout the Milky Way galaxy. This is what Dray got to witness and work in these facilities to do that. Military personnel that are checking on the progress of anti-gravity crafts and the sphere probes being built in the underground R&D labs connected to bases already built on newly discovered exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy. So Dray got to see how these operations are done. He's worked on these military operations and done these ops and this work. So this is what's being remote viewed, his experiences of what he's seen and done off-world. There are assembly lines and docking bays where anti-gravity crafts are stored, along with the manufacturing aspects of mass production of spaceships in the military installations connected next to the bases on exoplanets, so mass producing anti-gravitic crafts. Anti-gravity crafts that can fly beyond the speed of light, deliver personnel, supplies to different various exoplanets and base facilities and locations. That's the standard operating systems of how this works. There's large military bases that are designed in the shape of circular domes that are stationed on tall platform systems from which the bases can detach since they have anti-gravity engines. So the domed portions are their own spacecrafts that are portable and movable, being able to fly to other locations on the exoplanets where there are platform stations where the domes can dock with them. So there's domed bases that can detach and reattach themselves to platforms and move around on the exoplanets. Portable domed bases with a lot of military and crew personnel and also base personnel being transferred for different mission parameters on a regular basis. That's being done with platform stations on different exoplanets. There are central military base compounds with anti-gravity crafts landing and taking off after delivering supplies or picking up base personnel to transport them to other base facilities for new project or mission work detail. Central military base compound with anti-gravity crafts landing and taking off. This seems to be the standard operations of what's happening on these exoplanets. There's also underground docking bays connected to the military bases on exoplanets where various sized anti-gravity crafts land and do liftoff when delivering supplies or returning to home base when their military duties have been completed in one of the base sectors, so they rotate for new job tasks at other base locations on these exoplanets. So there's a lot of different crafts, anti-gravitic circular crafts, a lot of space marine crafts, which we're going to see next. This is the Space Marines anti-gravity crafts, patrolling Mars orbit space to make sure that intruders do not breach the space defenses. The Special Forces soldier with the code name Dray had served on one of these crafts for about 2 years for his tour of military duty. So he also worked with Space Marines on these crafts and served doing that work for 2 years. There's Orbital Space Marines anti-gravity crafts. So Orbital Space Marines anti-gravity crafts that are overseeing security patrol duties while advanced supplies for terraforming equipment are being delivered to Mars in order to start restoring the oxygen back to the atmosphere. And they're creating small lakes and oceans on the surface of the planet in order to increase building colony cities and domed facilities once the planetary atmosphere has more oxygen around the whole planet. So these huge orbital space marine anti-gravity crafts are delivering terraforming equipment and supplies to Mars. And these special forces military operatives like Dray and space marines are doing this work, security patrol work, delivery with these crafts. They're protecting Mars for future human habitation. And there's already bases on Mars. So they're doing security patrol work in the orbit of Mars to make sure everything goes according to proper military protocol, that all these SSP bases are secure and secured. There's also these cigar-shaped military crafts that can travel beyond the speed of light, since they have the constant velocity subluminal warp drive space bending technology that can bend the fabric of space-time in order to avoid the long looping of traveling in normal space and instead travel in hyperspace, which accelerates the space voyage and quickly deposits the anti-gravity crafts to exploring various exoplanets to build new bases on. And these crafts can have silver color, long, elongated long shapes, or circular style depending on the purpose of them. Large anti-gravity spacecrafts that transport military crews and test out newly developed subluminal warp drive technology to travel to the different exoplanets to deliver supplies for building bases and eventually more colony cities in the Milky Way galaxy. The Special Forces soldier, codenamed Dray, was one of the test pilots to observe how the subluminal warp drive technology works on the cigar-shaped anti-gravity crafts that fly long-range space missions between various exoplanets. So Dray got to do this work. He got to be on the Space Marines, large anti-gravity orbital crafts, and on these as well, large cigar-shaped crafts doing transport military work and transporting crews. Dray got to be on several different exoplanets in the Kuiper Belt and other places that have exoplanets. The Kuiper Belt has specific style type of planets, which we're going to look at right now. The Kuiper Belt has various free-floating planets that are not bound by orbits to the sun or stars, and several of these planets have liquid water on them. So they are being used as research planets for creating habitable real estate on those worlds to build military bases and eventually colony cities where more human colonists could live on these planetoids in the near future. There's hundreds and thousands of exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy alone that can be habitable, real estate to habitate. And there's the free-floating planets in the Kuiper Belt, which are also habitational. So they have liquid water and they're building bases on them. There's military operations happening in the Kuiper Belt. And Dray got to see that and be part of that work. The free-floating planets are Mars-sized worlds which have habitable conditions on them to support building human colony cities in the future. That is why the Special Forces soldiers and Space Marines, as well as other military branches, are first building bases on these planets to test out the habitability ranges for how safe it will be for humans to live on these types of planets. There is also an Earth-sized planet in the deeper reaches of the Kuiper Belt that has more liquid water on it than the free-floating planets that can roam the solar systems without being bound or tethered by gravitational pull to the sun or various stars. And Dray got to work on a few of those free-floating planets that are Mars-sized. That's part of the work he did. And this is the Special Forces soldier codenamed Dray, wearing a spacesuit as he is out on patrol duty doing security and reconnaissance work around one of the base perimeters on one of the exoplanets in the Milky Way galaxy. The Special Forces soldier codenamed Dray has blonde hair and a unique blend of eye color that is blue, green, and hazel. So the eye color can look different depending on the lighting and the environment where Dray is in doing the work as a military soldier. So he is distinct in his appearance, hair color, eye color, and doing military work, military personnel, and was drafted into this work in his mid-20s. As a military soldier working in special forces, special services, and working with Space Marines on security detail on a lot of the crafts. And this presentation was on remote viewing Dray, one of the military personnel. Thank you so much.